wrapping, like sheet metal screws. And inside I put sheet metal screws to attach them together so they wouldn't move around. So one less vibration, the better. That's pretty much the back stand. I think it took me an hour to put this thing together and try to put some feet on it. So it's got some kind of holding, so it doesn't bounce around too much. These are the lights. Barilla. I got those off of Amazon. They were about $89 a pack of 12. So I got 3 sets of those, and I'm probably going to keep those and use them for something else because I don't think I'm going to get a lot of overspray paint on those, so I'll be able to reuse them. But if you notice, I got everything taped up all the way around. I'll go back and I'll check everything because the heat has made the tape kind of flex a little bit. So that's kind of the direction I've gone so far on this. But for a DIY paint booth, if you chose to go buy all the materials yourself, 12 by 12 pop-up at Walmart's about $80. 160, less than $160 for the canopy one from Harbor Freight, which you could reuse as something else. You know, these are both reusable items, so when you're done, you can use it for something else. As long as you've, like I said, if you set it up correctly and you've got good airflow through here, you should not have a bunch of paint on your walls. Visqueen, when it's done, I'll tear it all down, I'll throw it away. I'll put it in some garbage bags and it'll get thrown away, as well as all the duct tape. Duct tape, I probably spent $125, $130 on tape. I bought a couple of wide rolls from Amazon, this white tape. It works pretty good, but it doesn't hold good on the canvas. So that's a word of caution on this. The Visqueen works well with tape and tape on plastic. It does not stick very well to the canvas material on the canopy. So you've noticed I've had to use white, I've had to use black, and I've had to use gray just to keep it sealed the best I can so the plastic doesn't give me gaps. So I've got a bunch of stuff I've been using, duct tape specifically. I've used a couple different sizes. I've used this one. I've used the 4-inch wide one a few times. I've got a couple rolls of the white. I've got a bunch of it on the floor just to keep the air from going underneath the floor and also to keep the plastic from breaking loose. It gives you the extra. Now there is a gap up in the top of the 12 by 12. There's a couple of ways you can address that. You can say, okay, I'm good with it because it's vented up there. Or because when you pull the fans on, it's actually going to pull. You notice that top little flapper, it's going to pull it down because it wants to pull it closed. So I'm not worried about that because there's actually a mesh screen up there. So I'm not going to worry too much about particulate up there because there's nothing in the shop here that's going to pull particulate in right now. The plan is when I go to paint, or prior to painting, because I still have to do some sanding in some parts. I've got to blow this car down really well. I have the fans blowing to get most of the dust out. The plan is, simply because I have the plastic Visqueen on the floor, is I'm going to use my Swifter that I have in the house with the soap spray and the Springer, the push button on there. I'll go through it and I'll basically Swifter all the plastic on the floor because moisture, and that will collect the dust and a particulate on there. So minimally, I'll knock down a lot of the dust and pick a lot of that dust up off the floor. Since I'm not spraying low, most of my parts are on stands. All of them will be on a stand or hanging. I'm not so much worrying about particulate moving around other than what's around the car, which I'll do my best to mask everything up very well so I do not get particulate blowing around, especially once I tape off the door jambs, under the hood, and around the trunk area and the bumper, underneath the bumpers areas where the mufflers are and the tires. I'll do as best I can to, with the Visqueen, I've got the mask, and I've actually got some very thin stuff you buy in a roll from Home Depot for like $30-$40. It's very thin. I think it's like point something mils, so it's very flexible. It's typically the same kind of plastic they put on cars when they're painting. You just put your tape down and you lay it down. As long as you don't tear it, it holds very well. The plan is to kind of get the parts finished sanded out in the next couple days. Depending on the weather, it's been very warm here. It's probably 100 degrees. Today was about 90 something. It's been 90s and 100. The shop gets to about 100 degrees easily, and that's not a very comfortable environment to paint in. So that's why I have the air conditioning. I'm going to try to prepare for that, and I don't want to do it in the evenings because the compressor cycling on and off makes a lot of noise, and I have neighbors less than probably 500 yards from where I live at, and I don't want them hearing this and getting pissed off. So the idea is to try to figure out a couple of days where I can lay down, paint the jambs. That won't take very long to do those. and try to spray as much as I can on a day that's maybe start earlier in the morning and go till like lunchtime. But again, with the air conditioner and as much sealing as much areas I have sealed off around with the plastic, I believe that the booth will stay comfortable. At least my makeshift paint booth will be comfortable. So overall, I mean, some stuff I've purchased, you don't need an air conditioner. I did because I want more comfort because it is hot here. And there's no air flowing, and the air blowing is just pulling hot air through the booth, and I don't want to do that. So I might have, $600 in this, maybe a little more plus or minus. That's not including air hoses, and that's peripheral stuff. I'm talking about the basic pop-up if you bought one, the 10 by 20 if you purchase one, the Visqueen, the filters, the lights. The lights were about $300 for all those lights, but you know what? I'll be able to reuse those. So it's not a one-time acquisition. I'll be able to use those more than once. And duct tape, you're talking probably, if you do it the same size like this, hell, if you did, theoretically, you could do this, if you had a garage to do this in, as long as your ceiling height was correctly, because I think the top of that 10 by 20 I'm thinking it's probably, it might be 10 foot at the center, depending on how tall your garage was, or your shop bay. This is the way I looked at the best way of keeping the paint particulate down, my floor not getting painted up, moving the air through the booth, and having a somewhat controlled environment and less particulate and bugs coming in here. That's kind of the plan right now. And so you could probably do this if you had a small enough vehicle. 10 by 20 will fit in there, but your extra parts will not. So you have to really think about the other pieces and parts, which is what I'm doing. I've got the car disassembled. I want a good paint job as best of my ability, so that's why I've set it up for this. You could do this on the ground if you laid some plastic down to cover up the grass and the dirt. As long as you anchored the 10 by 20 in your 12 by 12, as long as you have the structure laid down, and then same thing I've done, tape the plastic to the plastic. As long as you can anchor your legs down so the wind doesn't catch it, but then you're prone to having issues from outside wind blowing and influence affecting that. So I think the best thing to do if you have a building or a place you can use, this is pretty much, my shop is 30 by 40, the enclosed area is, and I'm using, this is basically, I'm probably maybe 11 foot wide on this one, and I'm 12 foot on this one. So you're talking, 23 feet wide. So there's ways you can do this and have I think a decent paint booth, a controlled environment, and with, minimal costs, and buying one of them blow up ones. Because the blow up ones, I know, but they don't have no lights in them. That's the only issue I have with those, is they don't have any lights inside of them. It's designed you to spray outside. And it's your lighting is what kills you on your paint job. If you don't have the lighting, you're not going to have a really good paint job. It's going to kill you when you start laying your paint down. You cannot see, especially when you start doing the clear. So I feel that my DIY wasn't bad for just throwing something together with an idea I had in my brain, and I think it'll work. And when I'm done, it's all taken down, and I can repurpose parts in here and stuff, so it's not a one-time use other than the plastic and materials like the filters and stuff. The fans I can reuse, 12 by 12 I can reuse, 10 by 20 I can reuse. All my lights I'll reuse. So that's your cost right there. Plastic is plastic. You can buy a roll of Visqueen, $100, $200 for a couple rolls of really good heavy Visqueen and some duct tape, and that's throwaway. Everything else is repurpose. So just want to share that with you. I figured I'll get some feedback on it, and when I start to prepare to start doing some of my basic stuff, painting, I'll take another video as I'm going along to show you before and after, and we'll see how it goes. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. If you have any questions, hit me up, and I'll kind of give you the best I can on what I'm doing. I've got my paint gun. I've got a Finex I purchased from Napa. I've used a couple of those. I've got a SATA, but it's got a problem in it, so I'm going to be using a Finex. Run 28 PSI out of the gun, or pressure-wise is basically what I'm using when I got the gauge on there. I generally try to control the higher pressure at the regulator, so I have the ample amount of pressure coming to the gun. I'll do my test patterns before I spray, but it's amateur. I'm not a paint and body guy. I'm just an amateur guy. This is an amateur thing I put together. So if you have questions about it, let me know, and I'll see if I can give you some feedback on, or answer some of your questions about what I did and how I did it, and a cost question. But let me know. I appreciate the feedback. All right, you guys have a nice evening. Thank you.